Support for this episode is provided by Sashko's Big Stretch Caulking. Caulking that won't crack, it just stretches. Sashko makes products that work. Stick around at the end of the video for a few quick tips that will help you caulk like a pro. You can find a list of all the moldings used on this project in the website post, link in the description. Choosing the molding or the trim is one of the last things you'll need to consider when you're building or renovating a home. And it can be a little confusing because there's a lot of moldings to choose from and there's different moldings for different parts of the project. So what I like to do to make everything very clear for me, the client, and anybody working with me on the project is make a molding design model. That's what I have right here, and that's what we're making today. I'm building the model on a piece of 1/2 inch MDF. I'm using Windsor casing, and I'll attach the casing with a 1/4 inch reveal. This 1/4 inch reveal represents the door jamb. Now for the baseboard. This baseboard measures 9/16 by 5 1/4, and you can see how the baseboard dead ends into the casing. The shoe molding is generally the last piece of molding that gets installed. The shoe molding that I'm using measures 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch, and you can see how it dead ends nicely into the side of the Windsor casing. Now I'll move on to the windows, and I'll start with the window stool. I'll use a router to put a slight round over on the bottom of the stool. The window casing, and again I'm using the Windsor casing, the same casing used on the doors, sits on top of the window stool with an inch reveal between the edge of the stool and the side of the casing, and a 1/4 inch reveal on the window jamb. For the apron under the stool, again I'm using the Windsor casing, but I'll have to cut this on a 45-degree angle with the miter saw and then return it to get the profile of the molding. For the ceilings on this project, I'll use a standard 3 1/2 inch crown. Okay, so now that I've got my trim model, let's bring it over to the project and take a look around. Okay, well I just got here and you can see there's a lot of work going on with the house. Just got new windows, and that's why we're starting on the trim. So we're going to be taking off this old colonial casing. We'll be replacing it with the Windsor casing here. Then we have the baseboard, the shoe, and we're also using the Windsor casing on the windows. I'm not installing the molding on this project, but I am building the cabinets that will be installed as built-ins around the TV. The bottom cabinets are going to be open shelves, so they're basically just plywood boxes that will be attached together, and then I'll trim the front of the boxes to hide the end grain of the plywood. Then I'll add a sapele top, and I think that'll look pretty sharp. There'll be upper cabinets on either side of the TV, and those cabinets will rest on the sapele top and go all the way to the ceiling, so they'll have to hold off on installing the crown molding in that room until after the cabinets are installed. All right, well now I'm on my way back to the shop, and next time I come back to the house, I will hopefully have those plywood boxes for the built-in entertainment center. And now it's time for that caulking video that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Caulking is a pretty big part of any painted trim project, and that's because generally walls aren't perfect and sometimes the back of molding isn't perfect. and all these imperfections create gaps, and you make those gaps disappear with a bead of caulk. Caulking's not very difficult to do, and once you get the hang of it, it's actually kind of fun. The first step is to cut the tip off at a 45-degree angle. Notice how I didn't make the opening too big. I can always make it bigger later if I have to. Then load the caulking in the caulking gun and squeeze a little bit out on, I use a piece of scrap cardboard. Okay, now I know I'm ready to go. Have a rag and a little cup of water close by. Put the tip of the caulking right where you want to start. Apply pressure to the trigger and go. I stopped right here so you could get an idea of with caulking and without. Now I'll bring the caulking gun back and continue the bead. Then I'll dip my finger in the water and run it over the bead to smooth it out. Here's a little gap where the apron meets the stool, and we'll fill that in. Dip my finger in water and smooth it out. Okay, well that's all there is to it. It's really pretty simple, and it's just like anything. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. And caulking definitely makes a huge difference on any trim project. It's one of the final touches. A huge thank you to Sashko's Big Stretch Caulking for sponsoring my show. I've been using the Big Stretch Caulking now for about 6 months, and I've given a few tubes to friends of mine who are painters and contractors, and I'm getting good reviews back from them. So I'm very comfortable saying to you, if you have to do any caulking, check out Sashko's Big Stretch Caulking. I think you're going to like it. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.